While the country should be enjoying an increase in local food production in a time of this pandemic, we see that the imported food on the shelves of the high-end supermarkets are full. It is clear that there is no real attempt to deal with the food import bill. It is a fact that we have a massive food import bill averaging over $6 billion TT dollars, and with COVID-19, it is even more. The refusal to deal with this issue seems to be a well-orchestrated plan by this government, which only ensures that the 1% and the major food importers, friends of this government, benefit substantially even during this crisis of a pandemic. Instead of providing support for increased local food production, our farmers are being removed from arable lands, which are now used for industrial development and housing. There is also the unfair distribution of land for agricultural purposes. While large amounts of lands are given to friends of this government, farmers who have applied and are in possession of the necessary documents are unable to acquire land. In addition, farmers have to pay more for agricultural inputs like seeds, veterinary drugs, fertilizers, and agricultural equipments. The situation is further exacerbated by our country's chronic foreign exchange shortage. Suppliers of these items are purchasing foreign exchange at black market rates and are simply passing on the cost to the farmers. The government's lack of concern for agriculture can also be seen in the reduction in the number of officers in the larceny unit. This unit is significantly under-resourced and cannot cope with the numerous cases of larceny, which will only further frustrate our farmers' efforts in growing local food for our table. More than that is the significant importation of the 3- and 4-year-old frozen meats like chicken, beef, goat, turkey, duck, and pork. Whilst this only benefits big business and big supermarket owners, it further exacerbates the foreign exchange crisis and also threatens the health, where in some cases these imported foods are unfit for human consumption. Instead of investing more in small and medium farmers to produce more meat for local food demand and reduce the dependency on scarce foreign exchange for imports, especially in this time of COVID-19, instead of doing that, this government support is only for their friends, the 1%, and the big business supermarkets. You see, a food crisis, Trinidad and Tobago, will not affect the elites or the 1%. It will only affect the poor and working people of this country. Like the previous UNC government, this PNM government has also failed to produce any clear policy direction and support for local farming and agriculture, especially with COVID-19. And therefore, they must be held accountable for the problems within the sector, which adversely impact food prices and the health of our citizens.
Good day, Trinidad and Tobago. You would have just heard an excerpt from the feature address delivered on Labor Day by the President of the Joint Trade Union Movement, Comrade Ancel Roget, on the issue of agriculture. And he made some very interesting points about agriculture, expressing a lot of concerns. And we have with us none other than Comrade Shiraz Khan. One can call him a warrior farmer. He has been at the forefront of many, many, many battles for farmers in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think his name is, he's no stranger to Trinidad and Tobago. So welcome, Comrade Shiraz. You would have heard the feature address by Comrade Roget, and you would have heard him address this issue of agriculture. And would you say that his concerns are legitimate?
Thank you very, very much again, Comrade Roget. I think it is very much legitimate because these are problems that we have experienced over a number of years. And people will say, well, why it is that you keep talking about it? If you don't remind people of the problem that we have, then you would forget about it and it will become like a plague, just there and just suffering. Comrade Ozzy, and we want to thank PG for his deliberation for us, because it is so important that our country, our comrades, the people of this country continue to eat healthy, especially in a time of this pandemic. Because once you are healthy, you will be able to fight this disease much better than if you are weak and sick. And if you are giving people food that is not nutritious, that is all imported dumb food, then you are looking for major problems. You are creating an environment for the virus to be attacking you more frequently than if you were producing and helping your local farmers produce the same thing that you import, rather than bringing something that is not healthy and is discarded and is being sold to Trinidad as pet food. I alone didn't say that. I've been raising this for years. Unless somebody with a jacket and tie in Parliament didn't raise it, we would have not believed it so much. So I am saying we are grateful for these issues that have been raised, and we continue to beg the government, the last one and this one, that to take the interest of developing your people. When you develop your people, not only the farmers benefit, everybody benefit, right? We have a problem where we really take the food import bill as a lip service. Now, comrade, since 2010, we're talking about the food import bill as $4 billion. And people still, especially opposition and government, they use that there. But when you have the certain items on the imported list going up by 1,000% in some cases, and 700-800%, how could we be still talking about the food bill at $4 billion? Now, nobody, government, opposition, any institution, don't want to work directly with the Ministry of Finance, because the Ministry of Finance, that is a short topic for them. That is short. It's not beyond the Minister of Finance reach. Because anytime they put out the real figures for the food import bill, some of us might be getting heart attack. Because it is in their interest suppress the real issues and put out the real information on the Ministry of Finance website of the list and the quantities of what is being imported into this country. We are guesstimating on a figure there, but you check it out. Just like with the other item that is negative, who really could be the small farmers or any small person bringing those large containers of food? Containers, I didn't say container of food on a regular basis to sell to Trinidad and Tobago. Imagine we have in our country people selling parsley, right? Tomatoes, and all the things that our farmers produce. We are getting imported and being sold at those high-end supermarkets that is competing with our farmers and are much cheaper because they are subsidized. We are not. Comrade, you think about it, in that if you have to buy something at a shelf that is not chemically treated to last long on the shelf, you go to the market, you buy from a farmer, but you are putting your farmer under so much of pressure by one, not giving him his lease for his land so he can have financial security to attain finances to go and produce more. You are not giving the farmer the necessary assistance in terms of research and development for present day systems that we now have in the world, right? The support of the Ministry of Agriculture. Let me just draw an next reference to you quite short, quickly. The AI service, you know what is AI, right? Artificial insemination. It's being done in human, but it's been done years now in cows, sheep, and goat and pigs. Rabbit also. The government, up to 6 years or 7 years ago, had 8 to 10 people employed in that department. There were a couple of them died on the job. There are a couple of them resigned from the job. Then what happened is that they brought in some people on contracts. Up to now, those people are contract for the last 2 to 3 years. Their contract has not been renewed, and they have not been given employment back again in the AI service. The AI service is supposed to stretch throughout Trinidad and Tobago. You know there is one AI technician, one Aussie, that is presently supplying Trinidad and Tobago with semen, pregnant, the cow, sheep and goat, pigs. Well, I don't know if they're still doing rabbits, right? It is not economically viable for a man to be rearing 2 and 3 or even 5 cows and to go a bull to serve these cows once a year. It's just not economically viable, right? So you have the government starving this institution, which is the AI unit, of funds and manpower and resources to put it into the hands of some private friend of the leaders of this country. So when we pay now for a service that is subsidized by the state for $20, we may have to pay $200 and $300 just now to get that service done. And thereby the farmer will say, hey, this doesn't make sense. And what will happen? We'll be back in the days of slavery when the big businessmen will have all the big farms and we have to go and work for them, comrade.
Yeah,
that is what we are facing.
And that is, I mean, really very, very serious, because what you're saying, which sounds like the reality, is that the starving this unit, and then we'll talk about the pre-deal larceny unit, because Comrade Roget mentioned that this particular unit starve it of resources, and then they'll find a reason to close it down because that's subsidized, and now you'll have to get the AI will then be provided by a private business.
Yeah.
And then give you a market price for that. That will totally put small and medium farmers out of business.
Yeah, but that is where he's giving those farmers and then those private entities, and they call it a private partnership, private-public partnership. He are giving those people the large acreage of farmlands that they have all over the country. They are getting 3 and 4 and 1,000 acres of land, right? So when you put the unit out of surveillance, right? And people who had a few cows will have to sell it to these big businessmen and them because they will just can't get them pregnant. And the only way you could increase milk production and have a young one or some other young ones coming up that you might have to sell it to buy books for your children for school or buy a computer or laptop. You now have to get rid of that and find some other means of avenue to come into your revenue, to come into your system, and thereby making you know the enslavement. Because that's what it is about. Going back and work for people and them.
Yeah, so from what you're saying is that their vision for agriculture is really going back to the days of the plantation system where you have a few large farmers.
Correct, comrade. You couldn't put it better for me.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the pre-deal larceny unit as well? That was another unit that they seem to be starving of resources.
And comrade, with this pandemic, pre-deal larceny is on rampant. In the curfew, they're thieving animals. I ain't hear Gary talk about that yet. In the curfew, animals are stolen. We have it on Facebook where people are losing animals 3:30 in the morning. For the last month or so, nobody is supposed to be out 3:30 in the morning. So they're catching people who break in the curfew, but they're catching the thief and who thieving farmers that produce and livestock. You understand? So what we had a pre-deal larceny unit. And I need to just take some time to give you a little history of it, why we have in this condition we are, right? As you know, I was involved in the development of the Agriculture Ranger Squad way back in 2000, 2007, 8 and 9. We finally got it in 9 with an experimental unit. When the UNC came into power, they actually shut down the unit. Basan Barat closed it down because it was a PNM thing, right? We fought, we got David Marsh to re-establish the unit, but he didn't like the Agriculture Ranger Squad name. He changed it to the pre-deal larceny squad name, right? Thereby continue with them with the same thing, but change the name and make them SRP rather than a specific group of people to work in the agriculture ministry to deal with pre-deal larceny. And they were trained to take matters to the court and charge people and everything. So at that point in time, the UNC changed up the whole thing and made them SRP of the police service, or controlled by the Ministry of Agriculture. From then to this day, comrade, from then to this day, and I can't explain everything because we put the comrade larceny squad at risk if I'm going to say exactly what I want to say. But they are staff for resources. Out of about 15 vehicles, there's only 3 working, comrade. 3 vehicles working. And they are still 10, 15 years old vehicles, right? In the penal area, the farmers and them took a derelict vehicle and repaired it, paid everything, the farmers in the area, and repaired that the police, the PJ larceny squad are using now, right? From the siren to the flashing light. We have a unit in Central here that don't have a flashing light, nor a siren, and they don't have a spare tire, they don't go far, right? Okay, after the change in the PJ larceny squad, they started off with 80 officers. When Gary Griffith came, I don't know if they went or they pulled them because they were always not getting salaries on time, this, that, and the other. 50 of the 80 officers went to work with the police service, leaving the PJ larceny squad with only 30 officers. And some of them resigned, some of them, I think 1 or 2 of them died from COVID. I'm not sure about that, but I think 1 or 2 of them were sick. And what happened, comrade, for the whole country, 3 divisions, you have 30 police officers, SRP, manning the PJ larceny unit.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back down to starvation of the unit for funds. But where they're going with this one, I really don't have an idea if it is in the whole plan of keeping farmers losing, farmers being under pressure, cannot produce, to import more, or to give to the big businessman the unit to run or to manage, or that we will have more farmers from the big businessmen.
Shiraz, is in keeping with what you have exposed here for Trinidad and Tobago. You see, the big farmers will hire private security.
Well, the big farmers have private security. The big farmers have private security firms.
Right? But for the small and medium farmers, impossible. Shiraz, as we sort of close off this segment, I want your very frank and open opinion on what I'm about to ask. You've been around for a very, very long time, and you've really been...
Hey. No. What kind of man you gonna make?
No matter how much...
But don't go very, man.
No matter how much you shave off your hair. You've been around for a very, very long time, and you've really been quite a fighter, fighting for farmers, all right, for Trinidad, but not just fighting for farmers, but I think you made the link very, at the start, you made the link between the health of the citizenry and farming and agriculture. And I think I would like to hear your opinion, and Trinidad and Tobago would like to hear your very, very frank opinion on whether you think that this government has produced a clear policy direction and support for local farming and agriculture.
They have not produced a clear policy, not even a direction. In fact, what they have done is from 2010 just make agriculture worse off than it was before. Right, because the importation has continued to increase, the PJ larceny continue to go unabated, and what happened is that because of the pandemic, and Comrade Roget mentioned it a bit in the speech, because of the pandemic and the shortage of the foreign exchange, they are now taking advantage of the agriculture sector by raising the prices uncontrollably, right, and putting a higher a cost on the farmer to produce, but also maintaining a cheap price for his produce, although he has to go to meet these high costs of inputs into production. Be the vegetable producer, the fruit trees, the fruit vendors, or the livestock farmers, right? Because you could recall last year the battle we had in meetings trying to understand why the feed was going up, and nobody did anything to assist the farmers through all of this. Now, if you really care, apart from mentioning that the farmers and this country are essential workers, if it is you pay 1 iota respect for what we are saying, we could be better off, because all of those things happen And throughout the pandemic, everybody got stimulus package and help and all of that. What help has he given to the farmers of this country in terms of any kind of package or assistance, financial or otherwise, that we can move forward to continue to produce? We have heard nothing from the government based on what it is happening for the last year and a half in terms of this pandemic.
Yeah. Thank you, Shiraz. Just some closing words from you now, because I think you have really hammered home the point that agriculture, and when we say agriculture, we don't mean agriculture like in the days of the 16 and 1700s, where agriculture was really a large plantation owned by large plantations owned by few people being worked by slaves and then indentured laborers. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about agriculture in the sense where there's food sovereignty and where local medium and small farmers are able to produce healthy food for our nation. Some closing words from you, Comrade Shiraz.
You said something in the beginning that had me thinking, because you said that large plantation in the past, but there was only one kind of people that hold the whip that make us work. But in this case, you might be seeing people not of that ilk only, but there's people like you and I and other people have the whip, the virtual whip on us that have us in a corner, right? Comrade all who listen and viewing, the problem we have is that if we as citizens, trade unions, nurses, everybody in this country do not understand the importance of agriculture in terms of producing our own food, a safe food, a healthy food, then all of us going to go down a road of destruction in terms of our health, in terms of our finances, because the moment that our farmers continue to have this problem to produce at a reasonable cost, then what happens is that food going to be a serious weapon in the arsenal of the capitalist class. And when we go back to the plantation system, of course, the whip will be more bigger, it will be more forceful. And then what happens is that when we cannot have a choice in our meals, then we will blame the people who was fighting before. But if it is that we are fighting both for the trade union, for the social justice and injustices that under people, equity, food sovereignty, benefits for everybody, if you all do not understand the role you have to play to save us from that calamity, please, comrades, although wake up, understand the importance of what we are doing here and what we are saying, because I have seen the deterioration of agriculture and where we go on for the last 20, 30 years, and we are not getting any better. Yes, technology is there. The 1%ers and the big businessmen will use the technology because they are having concession, tax concession. We do not enjoy that. And if we don't bond together to understand the direction we are going in, well, may God help us. Thank you very much, comrade.
Powerful words from a real warrior farmer, Comrade Shiraz Khan, in response to the feature address by JTUM's president, Comrade Ancel Roget. Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago.